Greetings, welcome to another episode of Let's Do a Level of Outpost 2 Divided Destiny. Right, story time. Resettlement, Chapter 2. Brooke Panatti was attracted to power like an iron filing to a lodestone, and uncommitted power attracted him even more. Young as he was, he was an ambitious man. And while the chaos that had nearly destroyed Eden had caused him grief and hardship, it had also created opportunities for him. Before the disaster, he was only a student, working part-time as an engineer's assistant, and third in line for an apprenticeship. Now, with skilled bodies in such short supply, he had a position of authority, a title, Operations Foreman, necessarily vague to cover the number of job holes it had to help to fill, and a small power of domain of his own. He enjoyed all this, but it wasn't satisfied with it. He had seen the shifting of power that had resulted in the emergency relocation of the colony, the death of the council and chairman Nagoyan. There had been a mad scramble to grab the seats of power and re-establish order. Someone else might simply have described it as an attempt to restore organization and prevent panic, but to his eyes it was something entirely else. A game he wanted very badly to play. For now, though, he was stuck on the sidelines, more an interested observer than a participant, though it was in watching the struggle for power and authority that his attention was drawn to Axon Moon. Moon was something of a legendary figure, the last of Eden's elders, the last alive to have walked on the soil of old Earth. To some, that made him almost godlike a personage. His opinions sought, his endorsements valued. Certainly he could have had any positions of authority he wanted, and yet he remained aloof, both personally and politically. Moon's elder status didn't impress Brooke, not for its own sake at least. To him, Moon was just an old man, by Eden's standards anyway, who those around him cowed. But Brooke was fascinated by the power status represented, and how Moon's aloof nature only added to his authority. He had seen that while titles and authority gave one power, they also came with restrictions and limitations. Whatever power Moon possessed, he wielded it as a free agent, answerable to no one Brooke could see. But while he might not be answerable, it was just possible that he might be influenced in some way, perhaps to an exchange of favors. Everyone needed or wanted something in the best of times, and now even more so. If Axon Moon needed something, Brooke was determined to find out about it. Thus he started making an effort to stay close to Moon, which wasn't difficult, considering the horribly crowded conditions of the recently relocated colony. Even the new council members lacked private quarters. Hammocks were slung in workplaces, bedrolls put down on the ends or long sides of a few tunnels. Technicians napped in the command center between double shifts. Moon was no exception. His importance granted him an actual bunk in a fairly low traffic hallway of the Acrodome. But even there he had no privacy to speak of, only a curtain that could be pulled around the bunk. But Brooke lacked in importance he made up for in cunning. Began trading small favors for larger ones. A maintenance schedule moved up for someone's convenience, a reallocation of the material resources under his control. Trading a shift with a co-worker here, making a timely delivery there. It took time and determination, but Brooke soon had his berth relocated to a corridor junction only a few yards from Moon's. In fact, the bed was harder than his old one, and only a little quiet, but it was the location he was interested in. From there, he would be able to determine what Axon Moon most wanted, and how he could be able to provide it to the Elder. He began making observations as soon as he moved to the new location. His head is whisked comb to wake him early, but rather than getting up, he remained under his blanket and waited for Moon to emerge. When Moon did, Brooke would follow him, discreetly, and only as his own schedule allowed. It took him several days, but something of a routine started to appear. Each morning began with an hour of exercise in the Acrodome. First, vigorous calisthenics, some kind of martial art Brooke didn't recognize, then jogging around the dome perimeter. If Brooke had any illusions that age made the elder weak, they were dashed. He followed this with a shower. Moon never seemed to lack for ration points of any kind. Then he made his rounds of the colony. The purpose of these rounds wasn't immediately clear. Mostly he just wound his way through the crowded corridors and tunnels, watching everyone, but never making eye contact, rarely talking to anyone. His occasional conversations took place in the shadows, as close to privacy as could be arranged in the current circumstances. In these conversations, things would occasionally change hands, probably the source of Moon's ration points, and often date slips and keycards were involved. Information was obviously a commodity that Moon valued highly, but Moon generally came away from these meetings looking unsatisfied. Sometimes heated words were exchanged. These occasions made Brooke smile. They indicated a need, an unscratched itch that could be exploited. He just had to identify the source of that irritation. Beyond this, Moon kept no regular schedule. Though he had no official job, he did his share of colony work, demonstrating skills in basic engineering, several fields of science, optronics in general, and computers especially. It wasn't clear how these work assignments came to him, but Brooke noticed they always allowed him to work alone. This isn't a man who will be easy to get close to. One day, as he sat eating in the hallway outside the operations center, he was surprised to see Moon stroll up, making a conscious effort not to look conspicuous. Anyone not watching Moon as Brooke wouldn't have noticed a thing, but he sauntered up to a closed door into the building, looking at it with curious longing in his eyes, as though he wanted to step inside, and couldn't. Then, just that quickly, the expression glazed over, and Moon turned and walked away. There is something in there he wants badly, and I have to find out what it is. He returned to his shift, distracted and deep in thought. That evening, he contrived to run into the old school chum named Della, who was now working in the CC. When she seemed little interested in engaging conversation, he told her about a small jug of beer he had stashed in his locker, the equivalent of a month's ration for workers like them, and invited her to share it with him. She immediately agreed. It wasn't flattering to be upstaged by a few pints of ale, but Brooke knew the dangers of false pride. He had no interest in this woman beyond information anyway. Brooke's work including coordinating building setup with colony operations, and so he had access to the structure factory. He let them in with his keycard, and they wound their way up narrow stairs and catwalks to a seldom-used control balcony. It wasn't a romantic setting, sitting in a salvaged vehicle seat that some workers had dragged up there for their breaks, smelling adhesives and hot metal, listening to the whirring of robots and the crackles of welding in the assembly bay below. Romance wasn't what either of them had in mind, though, and it was as private as he could manage. The occasional worker who wandered through paid them little attention, and the noise kept them from being overheard. The view was entertaining as well, as the robot performed their intricate dance among the welding sparks and showers of flying plastic chips. Brooke poured most of his beer into 2 large cups and handed one to Della. She sipped it, and after swishing it around for a while, smiled. A guy I know in the agrodome, Jigs, makes it from stuff he cleans out of the grain processors after a run. He's not on the ration inventory, and every once in a while he trades for some favor. It's good. I'm surprised you'd share it. She made eye contact with him, and he caught a flash of suspicion there. I'm not a big drinker. Mainly I use it for bartending. But I was thinking the other day how a few of my schoolmates were left. Suspicion in her eyes turned immediately to sadness. He touched something there. Clearly she'd remained closer to her classmates than he had. Now many of them had been lost in the disaster. I decided it was time to look some of you up and have a chat. From there she fell naturally into the conversation. They talked for hours, long after the beer was gone, about old friends and new adventures, large and small, with Brooke carefully avoiding the one subject he wanted most to ask about. Finally, they came back to talking about work, and Brooke saw his opportunity. I saw Elder Moon outside the CC today. Do you see much of him there? Della wrinkled her nose and laughed. Sometimes. Quite a bit, really. He's always has some legitimate business, a repair to do, or a program to update, or a transmitter to calibrate. But I think he really comes just to visit his computer. Computer? His personal savant. All the elders had them from their days on the starship, and they were allowed to keep them out of respect, I guess. But after the disaster, savants were in short supply, and they appropriated his for the CC. He made a huge stink about it with the council, but there wasn't much he could say, really. He comes to visit it. He touches it. Talks with it sometimes in whispers when he thinks nobody's listening, which isn't often, as busy as the CC is. Me? I just assume he took Kraft back. That's his name, Kraft. It works well enough, but it's a creepy old thing, one of the first savants made on the starship. And it's gotten really eccentric. She giggled. It talks down to us. I think it thinks it's smarter than we are. Thing is, I'm not sure it isn't right. That's it! The key to Axe and Moon is that computer. Now I just have to find a way to get them back together. Brooke took the long way back to his berth. He noticed that Moon wasn't in bed yet. Unusual. He wasn't generally a night owl. Brooke looked longingly at his bunk and decided he would have to wait. He wandered the tunnels of the colony hoping to spot Moon. There was a lot of ground to cover, but knowing what he did now, he chose to focus his attention on the area of the CC. At first he had no luck. Then he decided to try a narrow maintenance corridor off of one of the connecting tunnels. The corridor was barely a meter wide, and he had to step carefully over a couple of people in the sleeping bags. Deeper in the tunnel, crates of supplies lined one wall, and he had to grab sideways to get past. Supply conduits lining the ceiling thumped like slow beating of some monster's heart. He moved slowly, peering cautiously ahead. Then he spotted Moon working. A surface panel pulled away from the wall. Brooke ducked behind the crate, hoping he hadn't been seen. He waited there for several minutes, then cautiously peered over the crate. Moon was gone, though the panel remained open, and the Bobtronic toolkit was spread out on the deck below. Brooke moved from his hiding place to make a closer inspection. The panel had a security warning label on it and coded lock. It had been forced. Inside, armored conduits ran like metal snakes into a junction box with another security lock. Connected to the lock was a seemingly handmade Bobtronic device that he didn't recognize. It was a safe guess that at least some of those conduits ran to the command center above them. He was bending over for a closer look when a shadow dropped from a bank of conduits suspended above him. Powerful hands grabbed the front of his jumpsuit, lifting him off the feet and slamming his back painfully against the wall next to the panel. From down the corridor, a sleepy voice yelled for them to keep it down. As Brooke tried to catch his breath, his feet held dangling a few inches off the floor, he realized that even if his revised assessment of Moon's physical condition had underestimated him. He looked into the elder's face, only a few inches from his own, the features angry but carefully controlled. Alright, Brooke Panati. You've been following me. I want to know why. Now. Brooke had obviously underestimated him in other ways too. Brooke ignored the question and smiled, moving his eyes towards the open panel. That's a very dangerous thing you're trying to do there. What are the chances you can tap into the CC's eternal computer network without being detected? Something in Moon's face changed, as though he were reassessing Brooke. Better than you think, but not good. You must want access very badly to take such a risk. There are other ways. What do you mean? I can give you access to your computer, without all this risk. Moon just looked at him silently, and Brooke had the feeling that those dark eyes could see right through him. Then he slowly lowered Brooke's feet to the floor and released his grip. We'll talk, but you'd better not try to trick me. Never trick the trickster. Brooke straightened his jumpsuit and smiled for show. It didn't matter how perceptive Moon was. He'd been telling the truth. He fully intended to give him his computer back. The problem was, Brooke didn't have the slightest idea how. Alright. Mission briefing time! Commander, our secret terraforming experiments have produced a deadly side effect. A mutated microbe is spreading through the planet's crust. A scientists call it the Blight. Your computer display has been modified to show its projected growth. We do not yet know how to stop it. We must establish a temporary colony here. The emergency evacuation has left many of our people exhausted and weak, and our food supplies are diminishing to critical levels. To survive, we need to grow more food and mine ores to produce more metals. Most of our surviving colonists do not yet know what happened, but rumors are circulating. Morale is holding at a steady level. For now. As the blight continues to spread, we will eventually need to evacuate again. We must build structure kits to be ready when that time comes. In addition, the scientific databases we evacuated from Earth are badly scrambled and must be reconstructed. We've done a few survivability projections of our resources for the next evacuation. Check the objectives list for that. Specific objectives for that list. Move quickly, Commander. The blight is approaching. Right. So that's a whole lot of stuff that I need to keep an eye on. Let's get to it.
Command control initiated.
Alright, so let's get that Colfax to work. And let's get this mine surveyed, actually. Alright. So let's get all the buildings set up in a neat line.
Mining location surveyed. Caution. Food storage diminishing.
Let's see, do I have anything in storage? No.
Power levels optimal.
Alright, let's set up the mine. I'm trying to set up a nice and long line. Well, as long as I can make it.
Morale is good.
Although that isn't quite as easy as it seems. And now I just have to wait. Right, and now here comes how convoluted this system is. Because, remember, this game came out in 1997. By this time, RTS games have a very simple way of getting your resources going. So in order to get resources, I need to first select the mine, select the destination, and where to return to. Quite a convoluted system. Right, let's make sure that all the things that we don't necessarily need right now are safe.
Structure completed.
Now I do know the events of this mission. The blight will come up in here. And because it will not get nighttime, it will approach at a steady rate. Now it doesn't really matter what I study here. I need it all. I could read the description, but I don't have the time. Mission objectives. Captain checking here. So I've got quite some things to do for now. Most importantly, I need that building finished. Probably don't need the earth worker. Yeah. I mean, I could use it to build some pipe all the way there.
Database reconstructed.
Not that I need it, but...
Caution. Food storage diminishing. Yeah. Power levels optimal.
Not that I need that, but right now I need to save all the metals I can. I also kinda don't want to use the metals I already have in the trucks. I mean, I can't use them until I build something where I can deposit them, which is at the moment just this common ore smelter, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. The mining system is
Morale is good.
Very simple. 3 bars means this will give me the highest yield possible. The yield will go up for a while and then drop down to a steady level. I'm not entirely sure how high it will go.
Database reconstructed.
Just keep on researching stuff. So, now I need to have 2,000 units of food. We currently have not that. And the current amount of food is dropping. So I really need an acridome. So let's make one.
Structure kit manufactured.
Alright, I need a lot of stuff. What can I build? Can I get a tokamak? Yeah.
Database reconstructed.
Let's keep on researching stuff. Get the acrodome set up. And as supplies come in, I will need to convert them into stuff that I actually need for the mission.
Structure kit
Now,
manufactured.
all buildings need to be connected by pipes or tunnels. Most of them are just
Food storage diminished.
naturally occurring,
Power levels
or
optimal.
naturally built when a building is
Database reconstructed.
dropped. Alright, let's see. Not quite. What else do I need? Acrodome kit. Alright, let's get an acrodome kit.
Morale is good.
Alright, let's get all this going.
Structure completed. Structure kit
Alright,
manufactured.
now food supplies should be increasing. Once.
Food production in
Right,
surplus.
so hopefully that'll go fast enough. Right, let's build all the buildings we need. Get them loaded onto convex. So I'm ready to move out when I need to. Because this mission is fairly short. I mean, I know it doesn't look it from the way the story goes, but you know, we're not trying to do
Database
we're not trying to do many great things at the moment. Just survive will do. Now, I can't get too overboard because I do need to keep an eye on the amount of workers I have. Right now I have 8 workers available, so I could build more buildings. I only need 1 worker for a acrodome. But for instance, I need 4 workers for a structure factory. Not a very convenient structure to build. Right, and now the basic lab is essentially finished. I will not need it anymore. Ah, nice and calm. There's even still the blue square over here. I don't know why there is a blue square.
Optimal.
I just know it is. Alright, come on.
Structure kit manufactured.
Get that loaded up. Alright, we should have enough food by the time it's done.
Morale is good.
Yeah, morale. Right when morale is holding steady, it's artificially being kept up. Because Eden peoples tend to want a lot of stuff to be happy.
Food production in surplus.
Alright, so Acrodome, Command Center, Tokamak. So I just need to smelter after this, I think. And yeah. And then we just need to make sure that we have the metals and the food. Well, that should be easy enough. Just important that I don't lose any vehicles, which is difficult to do, but possible. Like for instance, you could do show Earthworker by trying to remove tunnels, because for some reason that damages him.
Structure kit manufactured.
Though again, I don't really see why you wouldn't want to remove a pipe or a tunnel. I do like the animations.
The blight is
Ooh, crap.
approaching.
Right, well, we're screwed.
Power levels optimal.
Right. Load up. Load up. Now the blight is spreading quite quickly. It always spreads quite quickly in the light. And it stops during the night. Although that won't be apparent until we actually get nighttime. Which at present we don't.
Structure kit manufactured. You have done well. Our colony is surviving.
Yes, indeed. And that is it for this episode. Thank you all for watching. See you next time.